Hi, and welcome to Razz Reviews. This review is part of my Oscar special where I'm going to be reviewing this year's Best Film nominees. And today, I'm going to be reviewing Moonlight. Moonlight is a film adaptation of a play that chronicles the life of an African-American man in the urban city. And the film takes place over 3 stages in his life. Stage 1 is when he's a child, Stage 2 is when he's a teenager, and Stage 3 is when he's an adult. And it paints a poetic and powerful portrait of his journey of self-discovering, discovering himself sexually and therefore discovering who he is. This film got a lot of critical acclaim and a lot of Oscar buzz around it, so going into it, I expected a powerful and emotional film. However, this film completely exceeded my expectations. It was so powerful, so beautiful, and so incredibly directed. I couldn't believe what I was watching. This jumped right up into my top films of 2016. I think it's absolutely brilliant filmmaking. I feel like films are a form of entertainment and art, and sometimes one takes over the other. In this case, the art took over. This film is an absolute work of art, so I can't wait to dig in and tell you about the top 3 things that I liked about Moonlight. Number 3 is the second act. The second act, or the middle part of a film, is usually the toughest thing to pull off. And a lot of times you've heard me say how the film has slowed down in the middle or lost its way a little bit. Moonlight does something exceptional where, to me, my favorite part of the film is that second act. The film introduces the story and introduces the main character, and you understand certain things about him, and you understand his life, and you understand the kind of emotional turmoil that this person is going through. And Act 1 is really powerful and leaves an impression on you. But when you move into Act 2, after understanding all that about the character, you start really seeing the effects of the things that happened to him as a child, and you start seeing him turn between being a child with a traumatic and difficult life into a teenager trying to discover himself and trying to become a man. And this little part in the middle was so beautiful to watch, so fascinating. I never felt bored. I never felt it was slow. Even though it's a slow film, it's not fast-paced. The second act of this movie just grabbed me like this the whole time. It would never let me go. And I felt so engrossed in the story and so engrossed in the character and the directing. I thought it was so powerful. I haven't experienced this in a long time. The number 2 thing I liked about Moonlight is the performances. Everybody was amazing. There wasn't a single person who wasn't strong. A definite standout for me is Mahershala Ali, who I know from things like House of Cards and Luke Cage, and he's always been a very good actor, but this is definitely a career performance for him. He plays a very unlikable character. He plays a crack dealer that you're supposed to hate, but he plays him with such heart that you can't help but love him. Just as the main character is gravitated towards him, so are you. He pulls you straight in. It was just so endearing and beautiful to watch. I think he deserves an Oscar for this movie for sure. All 3 actors that play the 3 different ages are incredible. I couldn't tell them apart. It's so beautiful to see a character from when he's a child until he's a grown-up. That's why Boyhood did what it did, where it showed the actor actually grow up. However, here they're not the same actor, but there's no way you can tell that it's a different person, which is incredible. But if I were to pick my favorite person, I would have to pick Ashton Sanders, who played him as a teenager. I thought he was the best performance out of all 3 of them, and part of the reason why the second part of the film was my favorite part. Number 1 thing I liked about Moonlight was the directing. This film was directed by a guy called Barry Jenkins. I've never heard of him. When I heard the name, all I can think of was Leroy Jenkins. This is his second film. He's 37 years old. Who are these young directors? Sometimes the directing takes over a movie where you feel the filmmaker is just going like, he's putting all his art and all of his elements in the film. I really loved how this film had conventional scenes that weren't filmed or directed in a conventional way. Like a scene where there's just 2 people who are talking, but it's just done with so much art and so much depth that you feel like it transcends just that dialogue and conversation. I felt like this guy was directing subtext rather than just directing the action you see on the screen, and it was so effective. I also like the fact that there were almost no cliches in this film. It tells a very deep and powerful and dark and painful story, and there was a lot of times where it could have gotten a little cliche-y when it comes to these kinds of Oscar films, but it didn't. Everything was unique, I felt. Everything felt fresh. That's why the film really engrossed me and kept me engaged the whole time. I'm really impressed with this director, and I'm very excited to see what he does next. And I think that he's a dark horse in the race for the Oscar. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually gets the award, and I wouldn't be too disappointed either. There isn't really much to say, but I'm gonna try and talk about the top 3 things I didn't like about this movie. Number 3, it's a very heavy film. I'm not really saying this as a really bad or negative thing about the film. It's just that it's really heavy. It takes a toll on you. And it's not lighthearted, nor is it a positive experience. So it might not be for everybody. This film is not fun. It's really heavy. I think that might work against the film sometimes. Number two thing I didn't like about the movie was there was a certain character who kind of disappeared towards the third act of the movie, and I just wish that we saw more of that character because I thought the character was very interesting and I would have wanted to see it play more of a part later on in this guy's life. And they didn't even really explain why that person wasn't there. It's just not there. So that was kind of a little weak link that I found. The number one thing I didn't like about Moonlight was the ending, sort of. It's not the whole ending of the film, it's just literally at the end of the film, it kind of ends abruptly and it shook me a little bit, and I didn't enjoy the way it ended. I didn't feel comfortable, but I felt maybe it was trying to make some sort of a statement, but I didn't really buy it. I felt it was a tiny bit self-indulgent. I wish it had a more smooth ending to it. Maybe because the director has been doing such amazing things up until that point that the bar was really high. All in all, this film really affected me deeply. I kept thinking about it hours after it was finished, and it really shocked me. I did not think it was going to be as strong as it was, and for that reason, I'm going to give Moonlight a 9.5. So, have you seen Moonlight? If you haven't, you really should. Let me know in the comment section what you thought, and as always, like, share, and subscribe, and don't forget to tell me what you'd like me to review for you next. See ya!